Hi and welcome. My name is Bert Verdonck, and in today's session we'll be talking about social recruitment. And in a more particular way, we're going to talk about how to embrace and how to elevate your employer brand and your talent brand. I'm sitting here with Erik van den Brande, who is the HR Director for PwC Belgium. Welcome, Erik. And let's get to it straight away. So how are you embracing social media and social recruiting more in particular?
Well, let's first explain a little bit who we are recruiting. Where is our target audience? And I have to make a split up between graduate hires and experienced hires. On an annual basis, we are recruiting a little bit more than 200 graduates, university graduates. So one of our most important target publics are university graduates. So that means in the first place that we have a pretty comprehensive recruiting approach available for each campus, being there present in a lively way, on job fairs, on whatever event at campus we believe is important to reach out to our target audience. But of course, if we say students, we say young people, we say millennials, and it's pretty clear that they use social media, they use new tools, and they speak their language. And I believe if we would like to be successful in reaching out to them, we also have to be present on those platforms and talk the same language with them.
Perfect. So being present on social media is of course step one. Being present always starts with having a personal profile online, maybe doing some other activities, joining groups and going interactively, starting conversations. But let's talk about having a personal profile first. And let's take LinkedIn as an example. So I can imagine that with your 1,500 colleagues, is that right in Belgium? 1,500 people in one organization here in Belgium. If they would have a, let's say, a perfect profile or an outstanding profile, that would, let's say, broadcast your brand in a more professional way, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. And that's also one of the things on which we are working. It's clear that giving that personal touch to that personal profile is of course something we will still ask them to do, and not something like very prescriptive, you have to do it this way and that way. The personal touch still remains very important, but it's clear that if we can reach a sufficient quality level in those personal profiles, that this is of course very valuable and also helps in distributing that employee brand, that employer brand out there in the market. So
let's say on a regular basis, do you do any activities, or how do you roll out, let's say, your profiles across the 1,500 people?
Well, what we try specifically in Belgium, for instance, is to support our people in that context, and this takes the form, for instance, of workshops we are organizing with our people, where we work together with them, give them some tips and techniques on how they can improve their personal profile, and answer whatever question they might have in that context. And also very important, because we can't stop there. I mean, a fantastic personal profile is one thing, but what we really would like them to do is to use those platforms, those social media platforms, in the way I would like to use them. And that's being active in talent communities, because they have the expertise, they know what other candidates, non-active candidates also would like to hear or are interested in. And that's what I invite them for. Try to get involved in conversations around the profession you're active in, the trends and topics that are of interest to you, so that you can start up a conversation with interesting potential candidates. And that means not only a personal brand, but joining groups, starting up conversations, starting up your own group around topics that might be of interest in those target talent pools we are focusing on.
Excellent, that's good, good to hear. So what you also see is there is a shift from, let's say, traditional HR, where they would do all recruitment themselves, into broadening it out to involving also the hiring managers, involving also all of your colleagues, because everyone is a brand ambassador. Am I right?
Absolutely. If I take, for instance, experienced hire recruitment,
yes.
I mean, we hire approximately 150 experienced hires on an annual basis. It's clear that our people in the business have the best access to those talent pools. In some instances, they know their colleagues in other companies very well. And so for me, it makes sense to involve them in an active way in our recruitment. And to give you an idea, I think approximately 60% of the people we hire on an experience level are people we hire through our network. Our own employees, our partners and directors, and that's fantastic, of course, because they have the best access, and that means that you don't have to reach out to sometimes pretty expensive channels such as headhunters and agencies. No, your own people can be of great help there. And okay, it's clear that sometimes you have to incentivize them a little bit to do so. So things such as an employee referral program might help. Exactly, yes. But it should be a basic activity, surely from manager level onwards, that people are always on the lookout for interesting candidates. And I think what is also very important to mention in that context is, to give you an idea, yeah, quite some people after a while move over to other positions. More than 50% of the people who leave us work at our clients. They are, of course, a fantastic contact points for our recruitment effort, and our alumni program in that context is something on which we put a lot of emphasis, and that helps a lot in rehiring people who have been working for us in the past. We call them the boomerangs. And I'm very proud to say that approximately 20% of the experienced hires we re-recruit, we rehire into the firm, are people who have previously worked for us. So that means that our efforts in offering a great offboarding when people would like to change their working environment and go out to clients, that if you do this in an appropriate way, that this helps you in the end in your recruiting efforts as well.
So would it be fair to say that then with your natural networks, you add social networks on top to facilitate the process in keeping in touch, and to use, let's say, social recruiting to actually get to the ideal candidates for you? Well,
and in that context of our alumni program, for instance, we are working with a platform we have specifically developed for PwC, where our alumni have access to, through which we can pass on messages, and in some cases it's also making some publicity about vacancies we have, but also vice versa. They might have open positions in their department. Think about the finance department in a multinational, in a Belgium-based multinational. Well, we might have people who would fit into that position. So it's a two-way communication through a platform, so that we can exchange whatever information we believe might make sense for both parties. And that we have started this up approximately 6 months ago. We see this increasing, and that's a very nice evolution. We still have to work a lot on that one, but that means much more people are present at our alumni events, but also the conversations happening between us and our ex-employees are tremendously increasing. And from a recruiting point of view, that is very helpful.
Excellent. Good to hear. Good to hear. Now, if we look at social recruiting, we talked about the term a couple of times here. So, in your opinion, what does social recruiting mean?
For me, it's about building up communities, talent communities, and through whatever platform, this may be LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, try to build up a talent community so that you get in contact with those non-active candidates who might be interested at some point in time in joining your company. And that means investment. That means, be present through personal profiles, that's one thing, but once again, starting conversations, joining groups, and so on, and that means, of course, investment. That means that this is not an overnight activity. You need some time investment in all this, so to find those people who are of interest to you, and also very important in my opinion, those gate watchers who are the transits to interesting documents, interesting material, but also very interesting people. And that takes some time to find those people who can really be of help for you,
And build a relationship with them.
Absolutely,
Excellent.
absolutely.
Right.
And it's give and take. I mean, you also need to be active there so that they can benefit from your interventions and vice versa.
Excellent. Erik, we talked about social recruiting and how important profiles are. Now imagine if your 1,500 people, or let's say colleagues, would have outstanding profiles. They would have, of course, a lot of visitors, and when they come to their respective profiles, whether it be on Twitter or on Facebook or on LinkedIn or any of the other platforms out there, would you agree that corporate branding, employer branding, talent branding, whatever you want to call it, that it's very important to give a good first impression, or let's say continue to build those good impressions?
Absolutely right. I think that's of very great importance. I think every employee who is present on those platforms is an ambassador for your firm.
True.
So if that profile is of an outstanding quality, that helps. If what they put as information on those platforms is brand compliant, is in line with the values of the firm, with the things you're standing for, that's important, I believe. So if you can do some work around that to ensure that there is a line in that they adhere to what you put forward as an employer brand, that helps a lot, of course.
All right. So how did you, let's say, structure your company brand and the briefing that you give to your employees? Is that just a document to inform people on a regular basis? What's happening there?
Of course, we do have those documents as well.
Okay.
We do have those policies as well. But I think what is much more important is active workshops you organize together with your employees, so that they can ask whatever question they have in that context, but that you have also the opportunity to show them what is good practice and what is perhaps bad practice, so that they can really see it and feel it, and then compare it to the way they behave, they present themselves on those platforms, and then they are well placed to make the necessary changes or improvement to their personal profile if necessary.
When you look at the profiles, people or publishing content online, people might have questions about, what is legally correct to do. Are we aligned with what is allowed or not? How do people deal with it? Can they go and talk to someone internally? How does that work?
Absolutely, and we have various possibilities or instances that can assist our employees in that context. I think about our marketing and communications department. They know how you should communicate, in what way, what behavior, and so on. So if you have any doubts there, they can be contacted, and they will be very happy to assist you with any questions you might have in that context. But I also think about, we have an ethics organization, so we have an ethics officer who might help you with dilemmas with which you might be faced, so that an employee is never alone with this question and can call for advice or can go with his question to somebody who in all confidence can assist an employee with what he would like to do.
Excellent. So that's something you would agree that, let's say, that's advisable for, let's say, peers, other HR directors in multinationals who are having similar thoughts, that would be something...
Absolutely, and not only the youngsters, because I'm using now the example of our young people, and it's clear they sometimes still have to learn a couple of things, but even people who are in business for quite some years are confronted to dilemmas, to questions where they need help. And so they need to have instances, persons where they can go to in case they have problems.
Excellent, good to hear, good to hear. Now, Erik, we talked about a bit of employer brand, talent brand, social recruiting. Now, when we look at you as a let's say, ambassador for PwC, you are using different platforms yourself?
Absolutely. It's obvious that I'm present on LinkedIn.
Of course.
I have a personal profile there. I try to be active in a couple of groups on LinkedIn, which I believe are of interest to me. I'm not that active on Facebook, to be honest with you.
Yes.
Even not from a personal point of view, but I'm pretty fond with Twitter.
With Twitter, yes.
And I invested quite some time there. That took me some time. I believe I came onto Twitter in 2009. And then, yeah, you start building up your community, your group of gate watchers, your group of colleagues out there on the internet with whom you are having conversations, but also who drive you to interesting content, interesting
articles, updates.
Exactly, and that's of great value for me. And therefore I have always been a great fan of Twitter, but once again, you need some investment time to get there, and it's still an ongoing exercise.
Would it be fair to say that when people start on let's say, using social media, that we can talk about a social journey, like a social recruitment journey,
Absolutely.
social selling journey, and that people need to take different steps to get there?
And perhaps start with those platforms with which they feel comfortable.
Right.
I mean, it's not like you are meeting somebody who is fond of Twitter, so that means tomorrow you need to be active on that platform. If LinkedIn is for you the right step up to the next phase, please do so. And I believe everybody has to search for those platforms where he or she feels comfortable, believes that he can reach out to the interesting people, and that might be completely different for everybody. For me it's Twitter, but yeah, you have thousands of other possibilities.
Sure.
And I think you should give it a try.
Right. So you would agree that you don't necessarily have to be on every possible social network, but that you should also focus on the ones that are, let's say, suitable for you, where your target audience is, and be in line with what's happening there.
I think it's infeasible to be present on the same level on every platform. That's simply impossible for me. I believe you have to make choices.
Right.
Some people might disagree with that, but you might end up with a situation where you might spend too much time on those platforms in comparison with the benefit that you get out of it. And for me it means go and reach out for those platforms where you, in your personal specific situation, can find the most benefit.
So Erik, what are the, let's say, benefits of social platforms for you? Can you specify a couple that worked for you?
For me, I would name Twitter.
Okay.
And I know that a lot of people would immediately react, Erik, how in 140 characters, how for God's sake can you spread out a message and tell your entire story? But for me, it's the story behind that tweet. And therefore, for me, gate watchers are very important, and try to find who are your most valuable gate watchers to excellent information.
What exactly is a gate watcher?
A gate watcher for me is a person who, for one or another reason, has access to the most fabulous material, who is able to reach out to those interesting materials very quickly, and who is ready to share them with a greater audience. That means that you don't have to waste time to find that great content, but they do the work actually for you. And that's the great advantage of social platforms, that a number of people might indirectly work for you because they bring excellent content on a silver plate to you.
And they give and receive good content, they share it with the rest of the world, so you benefit from it, but also you're, let's say, sharing it with your networks, and therefore they're informed as well. And so you...
Exactly.
Okay.
But secondly, I would also add to that, of course, the valuable conversations. Sure. If you have a question, a need for whatever, there are people who know who you are, what kind of industry you're in, what information is interesting for you, and they are immediately ready to assist and help you with your questions. And that's great. Thank you so much, Erik, for this interview and making the time to share your knowledge with our audience. Also, if you want to have more information or to acquire more information, please visit our website. Also, have a look at our online channels, and you probably know where to find us on social media. Thank you for watching this, and see you soon.